Okay, so this video, sorry about the echoes, but echoey in here. The video is all about marriage. So, the first thing that we need to mention here then, guys, okay, we're looking at the purpose of marriage or why marriage is important, or even just Catholic views on marriage. Any question like that, you're going to answer in this way. Now, it's really straightforward. It's a good acronym for marriage, okay, and it is SPELL. Okay, as in spell, as in I can't spell, or spell as in when you're in love, it feels like there's a spell being put upon you. Now, I prefer to think about it that way because my marriage is just sunshine and raindrops. Now, so when it comes to this video, the first thing, as I said, the question about why marriage is important, you got to remember spell. So, the first thing, the S, what does that stand for? Well, marriage is important, or Catholic views on marriage are that it is a sacrament. That's the first thing we need to say, okay? It's a sacrament. Now, this is because a marriage, okay, is between the two partners and God. So it recognizes God's role within the marriage, okay? And also that God is there to help give them strength and help them to feel united together, that sort of thing, okay? That God is there for them within the marriage. Then the second thing, the P stands for permanent. Now, this is because Catholics believe that the vows that we make during marriage, that they are everlasting. They stay together until death do us part. It is a permanent relationship you're united together for eternity, okay? Or, well, I say eternity. If you die, then no, isn't it? Okay? But for the remainder of your life. Then, E stands for exclusive, okay? Now, that doesn't mean like exclusive, like, wow. Okay, that means exclusive as in don't cheat. Now, so they are exclusive. So you would say this is because Catholics believe that you need to be faithful within your marriage. You are making an open commitment to your partner. Then there's two L's, okay? Now, if the key one here really is, number one is life-giving, okay? That marriage is supposed to be the environment for having children, okay? Because you are making that commitment together, that lifelong commitment together, so that you will always be there for your children as a united team, okay? Now, before any of you think that as Catholics or Mr. Aldridge saying there's anything wrong with single-parent families, no, quite the opposite, okay? What I'm saying here, I think single parents actually end up doing twice the work, okay? But the L is like that idea of it being life-giving because it's marriage being a great environment, all right, for raising, what's called having and then raising children to be Catholics. Then, the final L, it stands for, okay, marriage is a symbol, okay, of God's love for humanity. Okay, this is my least favorite answer if I'm honest with you, okay, but the other L stands for that it is reflective of God's love for humanity. And this is because the strength of the love between the married couple is supposed to reflect the love, if you want, between God and human beings. It's that strong, okay? Now, so that is, if you want, the describe question of describe Catholic views or describe why marriage is important. But you could also be asked, okay? You could also be asked to describe the marriage ceremony, okay? Now, when it comes to this question, guys, okay, what I would like you to do is I'd like to go through this process. Now, in total, I'm going to mention 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different things, okay? But you can join things together and also stuff to make your 5 points, okay? So, first and foremost, a really good thing to include for describing the marriage ceremony is talking about what happens before, okay? So, the first thing that in a Catholic wedding is that the couple attend preparation classes. That's a really key thing, okay? Attend preparation classes, essentially to understand the nature of marriage, to understand that they are truly compatible with one another, and they have those discussions, okay? That me and my wife, when we got married, okay, we went, there was only 1 or 2, all right, but we talked about this with the parish priest, okay? Now, I'm glad that she still decided to marry me. Now, so that's the prep part of it. Then, the actual ceremony itself, okay? So, it's a mass, okay? So, the priest welcomes everyone as a witness, okay? To the marriage ceremony, to the mass, okay? And the priest reminds them that it's a sacrament, okay? And it is when God will become part of the marriage. That's a really important thing, okay? Because I will ask you soon to link some of this stuff together, all right? And that one obviously links with sacrament. So it is a sacrament between... it's a sacrament, and that's what's sort of stated at the beginning of the Mass, okay? Then, the third thing, all right, to be aware of, is that it is when the liturgy of the word begins, okay? So the third thing in Mass, all right, is that we have the liturgy of the word, where readings take place that focus all about love, essentially, okay? So this will then be followed by the priest giving his sermon, where once again he will go through the nature of marriage as a whole. So we talk all about spell, okay? After this, after the liturgy of the word, we move on, okay, to the exchanging of vows, okay? And this is where a lifelong commitment, all right, between the two couple is made. It's called, the commitment is made, but also, okay, the fact that we talk about being permanent, and they say vows such as to be, make sure that they are exclusive and faithful, and to be everlasting till death do us part, okay? This is the vows. Following on from this, okay, they receive the nuptial blessing, okay? They receive the nuptial blessing, all right? Now, just slightly before, actually, I'm so sorry, but slightly before the nuptial blessing, all right, there is the exchanging of rings, okay? Now, when they've said their vows, they exchange rings because they are a symbol, all right, that of never ending, essentially, okay? That the ring itself is a circle, it has no end. It's a symbol of marriage being everlasting, okay? Right. Following on from this is the nuptial blessing, okay? So just to clarify, because I made a slight mistake there, guys, okay? The vows are exchanged, then exchanging the rings, and then it moves on to the nuptial blessing. So the nuptial blessing is when we call for the Holy Spirit to come down upon the relationship. And if you want, all right, that's truly where the sacrament takes place and God becomes part of the marriage, okay? Then the couple, okay, the couple receive Holy Communion. Once again, God uniting the couple together, but also God becoming part of the marriage itself when they receive communion, they receive Jesus. Then, okay, whilst they are married in the eyes of God, they're not married in the eyes of the law yet, okay? So at the end of the ceremony, they sign the register, okay? They sign the register with witnesses so that they are now legally married as well. So just to go through that again, all right, you've got at the very beginning, you've got the preparation classes, then the ceremony itself is the priest welcome and reminding them of the purpose of marriage, followed by the liturgy of the word, with the readings of the sermon, all about love and the nature of marriage. You then move on to the exchanging of things, the exchanging of vows, and the exchanging of rings, okay? Reminds us again of everlasting and exclusive and all sorts of stuff. Then there's the nuptial blessing, where God becomes part of the marriage, all right? Where the Holy Spirit comes down upon the marriage. Then we receive Holy Communion, so we unite with Jesus as well, okay? And then finally, to legally be married, we sign the register, okay? So your first question is describe the nature of marriage or the importance of marriage. Then this one was describe the marriage ceremony. The third one, okay, is quite simply, I just want you to make a note to more than anything, all right? Or just to add this to your answer. And that is, what if they asked you to explain how the marriage ceremony reflects the purpose of marriage, or to explain the purpose of marriage? So if they ask you an explain question, then obviously you're going to need to include a therefore. You're going to have to include an impact, all right? Now, if they do that, okay, I'm just going to link some of these things together, all right? So when it comes to it's called the marriage being a sacrament, okay? So the first thing, we're looking at spell, but it being a sacrament and how this is shown in the Mass. Well, therefore, that is why during the marriage ceremony, the priest explains that it is a sacrament, okay? The priest explains in the sermon and is welcoming, but also the nuptial blessing and receiving of communion is when God becomes part of that marriage, okay? When he becomes part of it. Then, with it being permanent, okay? This idea of it being permanent, well, there's two things to this. It's the vows and it's the ring, okay? So you vow to be together till death do us part, and the ring is a symbol of the marriage being never ending. Exclusive, okay, it's the same two things. Number one is in the vows, you vow to be faithful, but also the ring itself. The ring is a symbol that you are married, okay? So it's like saying, yo, back off, married, okay? Now, That's why I don't wear mine. I'm joking, my ring actually broke, but that's a different story. Now, then when it comes to life-giving, okay, about being life-giving, once again, all right, this is explained, okay, it's explained during the pre-sermon and throughout the preparation classes in particular, okay, that this is explained. It doesn't mean you have to have children, but it's being open, all right, to having children. So this is explained there, but also it becomes part of the vows as well, being open to essentially to continue having children, all right? Then finally, reflective of God's love for humanity. You can say anything really, okay, with regards to this, but the fact that they are making vows to one another to always be together, and also the fact that they're doing it in front of witnesses. But you could also say that, like, it's a real promise, and this is really shown when they sign the register. I mean, not only are they saying that you love each other, but legally they are saying, yes, we are together forever, okay? So, the question number 3 asks you to look at really what would you use as your therefores, or what would you do if they asked you to explain? Well, all you would do is exactly like I've just done. You would say, if the question was how the nature of marriage is reflected in the marriage ceremony, then you would still say Catholics believe that marriage is a sacrament. This is because I'm going to explain why, and then you would say therefore that is why during the marriage ceremony this happens. The same way if they asked you to explain Catholic teaching on marriage, same thing, you would say Catholics believe that marriage is permanent. This is because, you explain why, and then you say, therefore, that is why during the marriage ceremony, they do this. Okay? Now, when it comes to the evaluation question on this topic, okay? When it comes to the evaluation question on this topic, what you could be asked is, Catholic views on marriage are outdated, okay? And the Catholic side of this argument is saying, no, they're not outdated, okay? Because marriage continues to be a sacrament, continues to be permanent, continues to be exclusive, you get my drift, right? So it's the exact same answer you've already done, but you just make sure you include it where you say it continues to be like this. But the alternatives, okay? The alternatives to why we're saying that marriage is outdated, okay? So the alternative to the Catholic view, we say that their views are outdated. Now, when it comes to this question, guys, all that you have to do is you just have to say why spell doesn't exist if you want, okay? So, the alternative, why Catholic views are outdated. Well, number one, some people will argue that marriage is no longer a sacrament, okay? And when you explain this, you would say this is because lots of marriages take place outside of the church, okay? So therefore, what you're saying is a really important sort of detail here that you can include, okay? Therefore, that is why people say that the fact that 2/3, 2 out of 3 marriages taking place outside of church shows that it is no longer, okay, a sacrament, and no longer do people feel that God is part of that relationship. So that's one alternative you could use. The second one is that it's no longer permanent, and this is because a number of marriages end in divorce. So therefore, these people would argue that the church's view must be outdated, okay, the Catholic view must be outdated, because 2 out of 5 end in divorce. So first of all, we've got 2 out of 3 not married in church, 2 out of 5 end in divorce, okay? Why is it no longer exclusive? Well, this is because adultery, okay, adultery is often a cause of marriage breakdown, okay? So therefore, people who would argue that the Catholic view is outdated, they would point to the fact that when marriage is broken down, okay, when marriage breaks down, you been a slight change in the law actually, but you usually got to state what the reason for it is, okay, or who's at fault. And when this happens, okay, adultery is actually written down as being the greatest cause of divorce when there has been fault in the marriage, okay? So some of the other options they could have mentioned about, like harm, okay? But it isn't that. Adultery is the main one, okay? With regards to no longer life-giving, okay, well, the reason for this is that there's a lot of children who were born outside of marriage, okay? So therefore, people say the church view is outdated because 50%, okay, 50% of all children are born outside of marriage, okay? So we got 2/3, then 2 out of 5, and now we're at 50%, okay? And then finally, okay, and probably the worst answer here, if I'm honest with you, but marriage is no longer reflective of God's love for humanity. Why? Well, this is because God's love is supposed to be never-ending. It's supposed to be limitless, okay? But unfortunately, marriages are not always like that. So you could say, therefore, the fact that divorce exists, that the fact that physical harm between partners exists in marriage, then you could say, well, surely, or how could this be reflective of God's love for us? Thank you for watching, guys. I hope that was straightforward enough. So, your sort of 4 tasks, if you want, more than anything, okay, are, number 1 is just making sure that you know the purpose of marriage or why it's important. Then, the marriage ceremony, that you're able to link those together, all right, with the day it falls from the ceremony. But you also know what to do if it comes up as an evaluation question. I want you to pick 3 of those ideas I've done, okay, and to turn them into petty chains, okay? All right, and guys, thank you for watching. Take care.